For all you gray market tractor people out there, this is Yanmar 15D. If you have a catastrophic sound coming from your rear differential, it's probably the bearing race that lies right about, right in there, that holds your axle in check with your differential. When it goes to shit, you'll know it. Cavitation in the rear end of the tractor, your hydraulics will go to shit because all these hardened pieces of steel, they'll grind what's in whatever fragments off the bearing into dust and cork up your hydraulic filter. Now, there's a couple things. The boys over at Hoy Tractor over in Texas, they're fantastic. They're a family-owned company. They'll support you throughout the whole process. Obviously, they have some issues. They're a small little company, family-owned, and so I got the wrong bearings because basically I need to replace that bearing there. I gone ahead and ordered another one to replace that bearing over there. Now, a little before and after. That's what happened on the right hand side. That's a good bearing. Make sure that, you see that little channel right there? Make sure that your bearing, whatever you get, has that channel. Okay? If it doesn't, forget it. It's not gonna work. Give it up. It's over. But that's what happens when the bearing lets go. It grinds everything to pieces. A problem I had after it ground, and I did not run this tractor very long after I noticed a different sound. And it's know your tractor, just like Hoy recommends on their website. Know your tractor, know the sounds it makes. If it starts making funny sounds or anything out of the ordinary, stop, figure it out, or go park it somewhere, preferably in the shade and out of the weather. Because if this happens to you, everything falls apart and you get that big chunky bearing issue, it's gonna be a minute, all right? It's gonna be down for a few weeks. However, getting back to the right axle failed, correct? That bearing went out. All kinds of junk in there. I had to get these primary drive gears. This big guy, there's two, and the mosquitoes are tearing me up. Primary drive gears, I had to get them out. Well, if you order the service manual from Hoy Tractor, which as far as my research has found is the only place to get any kind of gray market tractor information on how to tear it apart, if you get their manual currently, you will not get the little section, little tiny section, probably a few pages long, to tell you how to tear apart the rear axle and what steps you need to take. Well, this is kind of the impetus of this video, because you need to take out your drive assembly. Then that'll allow you enough room to pull out these big old drive gears going to your axles. Don't be fooled. You have to do this. It sucks. You have to have a puller. I had to build a puller to actually pull out this assembly. Goes in there like that. Okay. I had to build a puller in order to pull this out. Do not let it fool you. It'll give you just enough hope to think you could pull that thing if you just turn the gear a little bit and fidget with. No, don't waste your time. It's not going to happen. You have got to pull that assembly out. Now, on the same, that's the right side. On the left side, there is your, well, you can't see it from here, but there's a little, that is your PTO speed lever on the 1510s, right? Well, inside of there, hold this up for you. the armature is on the inboard side, meaning that it goes like that, okay? Well, that gets in the way of removing the left-hand side gear. So if you're bearing fragments, obviously you want to clear out everything that's in the differential housing. So you got to pull those things out. If you had a catastrophic bearing failure, you got to pull those things out of there. So all the gears have to come out. Notice how I've removed your 3-point control. That's all come out. That piston, that is for your 3-point lift. Big giant piston that goes right in that socket right there. Couple of O-rings. That's a nightmare, especially if it hasn't been removed in a long time. It's a big old bear. But way to get around that. Let me interject this real quick. Going through your filter housing. Filter would be here. And if you can see it, you can see the hole where the piston assembly for your 3-point lift goes. If you take a breaker bar and let me see if I can find it. I don't have it handy, but a socket, breaker bar and a socket, put it that fits inside that hole. Excuse my hands. And then you apply a fulcrum back here. You can lever that thing out and work it out of there ever so gently. You don't want to mess up those O-rings, just like that's one part the manual does cover. So it's a big old mess. Once again, our primary objective here is to change out the bearing races on either side, ensure that you have the right bearing that has the groove cut in it for the snap ring. Snap ring goes on the right side and left side correspondingly, and that's what retains the axle, holds that axle in check. All right, so if you're doing all this, take the time to clean up everything that you find. If there's some play in something, if you gotta, have some issues with your starter Bendix sticking, or take the time to go ahead and service the rest of the tractor as best you can, because and especially, sorry to digress here, but inspect your gearing, all these gears, free spin them, see what's going on there. I encountered some damage on my primary drive gear as it interfaces with the I don't know if you can see that. See those burl marks right through there? Yeah, that kind of sucks. I think it's going to be okay. I'm just going to hone it out. The left-hand axle gets me back to the left-hand side axle. The end of that axle, because that bearing blew out, that whole axle just flopped around inside the casing. So that mushroomed the end of the left-hand side axle. So in order to remove the axle on the left-hand side, I had to take my Dremel tool with a high carbon or a grinding bit and get in between each and every one of those grooves to gradually take away material. It took about 2 hours. Take your time to take away material in order for it to clear that earring, or that ear and the bearing, to remove the axle. Guys, I hope this don't happen to you, but if it does, I hope it helps. Good luck to you out there.